Hello everyone and welcome to the first episode of When This Toy Meets World. Today we are going to be taking a look at the Fright features real Ghostbuster reissues from Hasbro in 2024. Hasbro has released these as a tie-in with the new Ghostbusters film Frozen Empire coming to theaters in March. As you can see, these are pretty faithful recreations of the original vintage figures that we all loved when we were kids. These are hitting store shelves at Target now. Later in the video, I will provide the DPCI code so you can go on the hunt for these yourselves. A lot of Targets have these in the back still. It's rare that these are actually on the shelves yet. I had to go to several different Targets to be able to get the complete set. It seems like the assortment is not quite getting any of them or all of them at once at every store. So for instance, some are getting 2 Winston and 3 Rays and no Egon and no Peter. What I found for me personally, the hardest one to find was Peter. So without further ado, let's get into talking about each one of these. Let's take a look at Egon in the packaging. Again, this is a pretty faithful recreation of what we loved. One thing you're going to notice, however, here is that there's a difference with the little bubble, the information saying Fright feature action. This is definitely a change from where it described each figure's feature on the vintage version. Next, let's take a look at the back of the card. And as we're looking at the back, you can see it's definitely much different than the original card. The original card had all the different figures that were out at the specific time, whereas this only has the info about the 4 Fright feature figures being released by Hasbro right now. Hopefully we get another wave of these where we will get a Janine and maybe some Haunted Humans that came out originally. In the first wave of Kenner Classics, we got the 4 heroes, Slimer, and Stay Puft. In wave 2, we got Fearsome Flush and Bug-Eye Ghost. It would be great if we can get the Haunted Humans as well as Janine. Anyways, here's Egon in his packaging in all its glory. Let's go ahead and take a look at Peter in the package. Again, very faithful recreation of the original figure in the package. One thing I've noticed here is Peter's face. He definitely looks a little different than what I remember the vintage figure looking. I think most notably the hair on the original was coming down a little bit further into his eyebrows. Because a lot of vintage figures, the green on the eyes would wear off and the eyebrows would also wear off because the hair would rub against it as it popped up and down. So maybe Hasbro modified it a little bit so that this doesn't happen with the re-release. So anyways, there's Peter in the package, and let's go ahead and take a look at the back. Very much the same as what we got with Egon, with the only difference being that you are going to get Peter's features over what Egon's features were. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the Winston figure, and man did I love this Winston figure when I was a kid. Behind the Egon figure, this was easily my favorite figure. And as you can see, again, very faithful recreation of the original packaging here. Not much else to note on this package on the front, but here we're going to go ahead and flip it over and take a look at the back of the card here. And as you can see, again, very much the same, with the only difference being that we get Winston's features instead of Egon or Peter's, along with the Kenner logo and the Hasbro logo. But man, just what a great figure this one was. Such a cool one. I loved this figure so much when I was a kid, played with it all the time, probably pretty much over all of the other ones beyond Egon, who we know always had his tie break constantly. So now let's go ahead and take a look at the Ray figure here. The Ray figure, again, very much a faithful recreation of the original, but I will say his face seems a little off to me. Not nearly as much as what the Peter looks like, but there is something a little bit different about this one. But overall, really great figure. Let's take a look at the back of the card. And when we look at the back of the card, you can see, again, very much the same. We just get Ray's features over all the others, along with the Kenner and the Hasbro logos. Now, let's go ahead and take a look at the figures out of their package. First, we have Egon with the Sore Throat Ghost. And this figure is very much like the original. Feels the same from the plastic standpoint. The tie is very much breakable, seeming like the original. I would recommend being very careful with this. If you're giving it to a child, it's probably going to end up broken, much like all of ours were when we were kids. But if you are just putting this in a display case and looking at it, you should be fine. But man, very much like the original one in that regard. But his features, again, it's going to be his left arm. If we press that left arm down, we're going to get the tie flipping up and his head moving and his mouth opening, just like we got with our original figure from the 80s. His gun that he has in his hand, it's kind of a squishy plastic. I don't remember if the original was squishy like that or not, but this one's a little bit squishy. His arm moves up and down. His legs move up and down as well as far as articulation goes. And his ghost, the Sore Throat Ghost, I feel like it's the same kind of plastic that we had when we were kids. Nothing really different there. But man, look at that Fright feature action. Much simpler time when we were kids, right? With what we could get our action figures to do versus what action figures do now for kids with technology. We were really happy with what we got in that regard. But just taking a look, the weight I think feels pretty much the same, and the plastic feels pretty much the same. And here's a closer look at that Sore Throat Ghost we were just talking about. Again, very much the same kind of plastic. It's not really bendy. It's pretty solid. Just like the rest of the ghosts that we got in the first Kenner Classics wave. And here is a an even closer look we're gonna see here. And there's his weapon as well. And now we're gonna move on to the Peter Venkman figure. Again, I feel like there's something just a little different about his face here. As I mentioned, the hair doesn't seem to come down quite as much as it did on the original. The eyebrows used to rub off because the hair would touch it as it came down, as well as the green on the eyes would rub off as the bug eye happened. His face also seems a little fatter to me, as well as the color on it I think is different. And maybe when I look at a vintage figure now, maybe the plastic has just aged, which has made it darker. Peter kind of looked like he had a tan on those, whereas this one is a lot lighter to me. And maybe that's just me. You can leave a comment below and tell me your thoughts on that. But otherwise, it's still a cool figure. His feature, his left arm, you press it down, his hair pops up, his eyes bug out, and his mouth drops, just like we remember on the original figure. His gun is just like Egon's. It's like a squishy kind of plastic, so it is bendy, it's movable. Again, I can't remember if that is like the original or not. But, it's such a cool figure, even though there's some differences in the face. It still brings that nostalgia factor back to it. And, just a good figure. This was also one of my favorites when I was a kid. Honestly, I loved the whole line, but Egon and Winston were my absolute favorites overall. But now, we're going to go ahead and take a look at the articulation. As I said, the arm moves up and down, his legs move up and down as well, and here is his ghost. So we've got the Gruesome Twosome Ghost. It is squishy, as you can see. It bends like the other ghosts may bend a little bit. It's a little softer, I would say, than the Sore Throat Ghost. This so you can put it around Peter's neck. You can put it on his hands. Whatever you want to do with the playability, or just display it next to him. But again, overall, cool figure. It's not my favorite in the re-release just because I can see these differences. But that Egon, very faithful recreation. Whereas the Peter, there's just something a little bit off on it again. Leave a comment and tell me what you think. And now let's take a look at Winston. What a cool figure. This one very much the same as the original. Honestly, I can't see any differences here in this figure. It looks very much like I remember. Now, one thing to note here is that Egon and Peter's Fright feature action were on their left arms. Winston's Fright feature action is on his right arm. So when we pick up this Winston and we take a look at it, we're going to go ahead and press down on his right arm, and as you can see, his head spins, his mouth opens. This to me was the coolest Fright feature action next to the Egon with the tie and the mouth. I really liked Winston's Fright feature, and I had a lot of fun playing with that figure as a kid. And again, his articulation is very much the same. His left arm moves up and down, his legs move up and down as well, and his ghost is pretty solid. You can't squish that in. It is called Scream Roller. It can go over top of his head. You can display it next to him, whatever you want to do. Just have a lot of fun with it. His gun, again, it's very much like Egon and Peter's. It's kind of a squishy plastic, so you can bend it, you can move it a little bit. I'm not sure, again, if that is what the original was like or not, but man, such a cool figure. Now we're going to move on to the race stance. Again, I think there's something a little bit different on this one as well from the original. I can't quite put my finger on it. I feel like it's something with the face. Let me know what you think versus this one and the original. But his Fright feature is also on his right arm, just like Winston's. So if we press that, you can see it's going to make his hair pop up and his ears are going to pop out. So we're going to give it a shot here, and we're going to go ahead and press the arm, and here we go. You can see as we're pressing the arm down on this figure, his hair is going to pop up and his ears are going to pop out. Just a much simpler time when we were kids, and we were really happy with this. So here it is. You can see those eyes get bigger and those ears pop out. Such a cool figure. Again, this one wasn't my favorite. I would say this one might have been maybe my least favorite, but still a very cool figure growing up. But other than that, his articulation, his left arm moves up and down, and his legs move up and down as well. But nothing really special to right there on the articulation, what you would expect from the 80s. His gun is just like all the others. It's a bendy kind of plastic. Again, not sure if that's what the original was like or not, but really like this figure. And his ghost, the jail jaw ghost that comes with him, very solid. Not really bendy at all. It's more of a hard plastic, unlike the gruesome twosome that came with Peter. The jail jaw ghost is really cool. I think it's the same ghost, I believe, that comes with the trap from when we were kids. Just the trap one was a glow-in-the-dark variant, but I think it's the exact same ghost. But man, look at all four of these figures together. Does this not strike the nostalgia chord? Just such a cool set to have, and I hope you all can go out and find these figures. Again, I had mentioned I was going to share the DPCI with you, so that DPCI code is 087260566. It is shared across all four of the figures, so when you give the Target associate that DPCI code, it's going to bring back an assortment, and they can tell you which ones they have and don't have. And I hope you all can find these figures much like I did and relive your childhood dreams with these figures. So really want the Kenner Classics line to continue on with more of these figures. Again, I want to get the Haunted Humans and another wave of the Fright Features figures, as well as Janine. But what I would really, really, really love to get is a re-release of the Firehouse with some more ectoplasm. Because as we all know, the Firehouses that are out now are old, the plastic is yellowing, the ectoplasm is dried up. Not to mention, it is a fortune to find one in great shape with the box. So if we could get Hasbro to re-release that Firehouse, maybe even as a Hasbro Pulse item, because we know it's probably going to be a little expensive, as these figures are about $15 each. I believe the Ecto 1 was in the $45 range when it was re-released. So we could probably expect the Firehouse is going to be in that $100 range if they do re-release it. But man, I hope they do. Let's continue on with these Kenner Classics, and I hope you all like this video. Please tell me what your thoughts are on these re-releases. And if you like this video, like and subscribe and comment. And that is the first episode of When This Toy Meets World. Thank you all for watching, and I appreciate your support.